It's time to take your seat in the front row with Mike Vaccaro. Here's your host, Mike Vaccaro.
Hey, thank you, Chuck, and welcome, as always, everybody. Mike Vaccaro here in the front row, behind the scenes. J.R. Quitman, our creator, producer, and director. Before we get to our guest in episode number 42, we want to thank you for watching and subscribing, and also ask you to subscribe if you haven't yet. Please do so. You don't want to miss any of our upcoming guests that we have scheduled as we count down toward 50 shows here very soon. Right now, though, it's episode number 42, and for that, we talk with Dwight Freeney, defensive end, future Pro Football Hall of Famer, grew up in Connecticut, went to Syracuse, was an All-American there, first-round draft pick by the Colts, spent 11 years with the Colts, won a Super Bowl with Indianapolis, and finished up a 16-year career in the NFL, now a nominee for the Pro Football Hall of Fame, trying to get elected the first year on the ballot. We talk about all that, including being a dad and also his golf game with some of his buddies you may have heard of. Episode number 42. It is former Indianapolis Colt, Dwight Freeney. First of all, Dwight, thanks for spending some time with us here today. And I know it's a great time to talk to you because news recently that you're one of the nominees, 129 nominees for the Pro Football Hall of Fame, and some more hurdles coming up. But congratulations on being on that list in your first year eligible.
Oh, man, I appreciate it. I take nothing for granted, man. So, whenever I can be part of any list, anybody voting me in, especially something as prestigious as this, man, thank you.
Yeah, a couple, like I said, a couple hurdles to go, and we'll find out in January if you will be enshrined in Canton, which a lot of people think you will. We'll talk more about that a little bit later on, but let's start at the very beginning for you and how things started athletically. And you grew up in Connecticut. I know at high school you were a four-sport athlete. What were you playing growing up as a kid?
You know what? I played everything. That's kind of what I stress to parents these days. What worked for me, it wasn't just, okay, he's going to be a basketball player, baseball player, football player, just stuff him in that his entire childhood. It's very interesting that there's so many different sports that help other sports, hand-eye coordination. You might do some stuff in baseball that might help you in soccer or football or what have you. So for me, I played baseball, I played basketball, played football, obviously. I played soccer. I was in bowling leagues. Okay. So I did a little bit of everything and it was great. And I think, to be quite honest with you, like I said, some of the skills that I, learned in one sport kind of transferred over to another sport, which helped me.
Obviously, football became your sport, and I saw as well that basketball kind of helped you with that spin move. Is that where that spin move began for you? Because obviously it's something that, again, has a chance to carry you all the way to Canton, Ohio.
No, absolutely. It was something that no one ever taught. When I was growing up playing football, it was always told to any defensive player, never turn your back to the football. All right. Bad things happen. Well, I played basketball, and around that time, the And One mixtapes, if you remember, was big during, the late 90s, So for me, it was kind of like, all right, I love that. I love playing basketball. I love being creative. How creative can I be to make a play? How do I bring And One mixtapes to the game of football? And that's how it kind of developed and started for me. So it wasn't me watching film, watching another player and trying to emulate him. There was no one really like me. So I went out and just decided to be as creative as possible, just to have fun on the football field. And there it goes. That's the creation of the spin move, the way that I use it. And now you see it throughout the entire league all the time.
Yeah, certainly a trendsetter. Do you remember the first sack that you got because of that move?
I definitely don't. I definitely don't. It wasn't even. I remember the first play I made. It was actually, I think, in a championship game in high school. It was a run play, actually, and somebody was coming to block me, and I spun off of the block and made the play in the backfield. I was like, oh, it actually works. So I remember that in high school. Definitely don't remember, in college or in the pros, when the first time it worked. I just, it became so natural. I use it all the time in practice. I don't think I ever was surprised when it worked for me to remember it and say, hey, my spin move worked,
You're like a lot of our guests that, again, played multiple sports, and some of them thought that they were going to maybe excel in a different sport. Was there another sport that you thought this was yours, but obviously eventually it became football?
Yeah, it was kind of how do I say it? Like a transition that kind of like, kind of just all the other options just kind of like passed away at the wayside, and just football became the same focus, the only focus. Now, I played basketball. I love the game of basketball, but I don't think there's any 6'1" power forwards in the NBA. So at some point, and I couldn't really shoot the ball. I was kind of like a Dennis Rodman, type of player. Wanted to be Barkley, but just couldn't score enough. Had great defense. But like I said, being 6'1", you're not gonna get that many offers to any Division I basketball schools, right? So that kind of fell away. And then there was baseball, which I was very good at. And I think what happened, and I joke around my father, he ended my baseball career. He was the head coach of my baseball team. And, if you guys know anything about baseball when you're younger, if your dad's the head coach and you have a strong arm, guess what? You're going to be the pitcher. So you're going to sit there. So I think, to be quite honest with you, I ended up throwing my arm out, being a pitcher in high school. And I was a pretty good center fielder. And I literally basically could not even get the ball. You have these drills where you catch the ball in center field and you have to throw it to third base. There was like a tryout. I think the Cincinnati Reds came to town and so I was in there just catching the ball and I would literally it'll bounce like 5 times trying to get to third base. So I knew my journey was done there. But football kind of, like I said, everything else kind of fell by the wayside and everything just kind of focused right on football.
Yeah, you were an All-American in high school, and again, the sack started to come. When were you starting to get recruited in high school? When did you think, okay, I could take my talents to the next level on the Division I level?
I think, around my senior year, early in my senior year, I was getting, some recognition. I'm not lying when I tell people my thought process, in high school was just be the best high school player I could possibly be. I didn't even think in my mind saying, oh, I want a D1 scholarship. It was just, hey, I want to go out there and play the game that I love and play it to my best ability. And I didn't even think about if something happened, and it just all of a sudden I got a letter. I'm like, oh, yeah, that's right. If I played good in this sport, I could get a scholarship. So when you start getting those letters and then you realize, wait a minute, it isn't just for fun. You're actually doing it to get to school. And, you could get a scholarship and help your parents, pay for, school so they don't have to pay for school. So that's what it turned into. The first scholarship letter, I don't know. I think I probably got something from, either Wake Forest or Rutgers or something like that. Yeah.
Well, eventually it was Syracuse.
Yeah.
Paul Pasqualoni, the head coach, is a Connecticut guy as well. Was that kind of a hook for you that you guys had that common connection of both being from Connecticut?
I don't think so. I just think that I liked when I went on the visit, I liked, their mentality. And their mentality was very similar to the mentality that I was used to in high school. It was, we were, I went to a Boston College recruiting trip. And I went into the locker room, they have all the recruits come in. And it was kind of like, the day before the game on a Saturday. And I was in the locker room and guys were just hanging out. You wouldn't even know there was a game. It was just kind of like, da 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 da. Oh yeah, there's a game. Let me put my pads on. Da, 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 da. And I go to Syracuse. Same thing. right before a game. And these guys are just juiced up. They're ready to go. They're yelling, they're screaming, they're getting, and that kind of like, really just engulfed me and just made me make that decision a lot easier and quicker. I said, you know what, that's how we were in high school. We were ready to go. We're going to run through this wall. If this wall wasn't there, we're going to run out to this field and just destroy and cause havoc. That is, what I felt when I went to a Syracuse football, game when I was in high school. And that's kind of what sold me from that perspective.
Yeah, certainly a really good time for Syracuse during your recruitment there as well. And you were 44 in high school. You had your high school jersey retired. Were you thinking you were going to be 44 at Syracuse? Did you know anything about the history of that number?
I knew nothing. I wasn't even big into college football. I really didn't know anything about it, to be quite honest with you. Being from Connecticut, you didn't have any college. You're watching football, you're watching the pros. You're not watching any college team because there is no D1 college football at that time, Division I in Connecticut. So for me, I didn't know anything. And I don't even think I asked. I might have asked. I don't even remember. But there was no chance that I was going to get number 44. So I ended up with 54.
Yeah, 54. Not bad. You've made that one famous on your own accord there. Take us through the start of your career. You had a chance to play as a true freshman. Was it kind of learning things a little bit because the sacks weren't there in your freshman year, but obviously by the end of your career they were.
Yeah, it's a big learning curve, and you have to figure out what you're doing, how your body moves. You're growing still. You're still getting developed. Your game is still growing. The coaches don't know you. You don't know the scheme. So there was a lot of indecision. Let's just call it. When I got my first year and my second year really. But my first year, they had me playing nose tackle at some point. I think my first sack or quarterback hit is against Tom Brady. We played Michigan. It was a big play in the game. And that wasn't from a defensive end position. They had me inside playing on a guard and making a move. I made a move inside and ended up hitting him. Now, towards my progression and my end of my college year, I started learning how to play the game the proper way. Had a lot to do with Deke Pollard. Deke Pollard was my D-line coach, my first year at Syracuse. He was a former pro coach. He coached defensive backs, but he also, it's funny, Deke Pollard coached with my NFL coach who passed away, John Turlink. Okay, so John Turlink was the D-line coach. And Deke Pollard was the defensive back coach, I think, for the Rams. So then when Deke Pollard decided to take the job at Syracuse, I was watching film, NFL film, in Syracuse of the techniques that John Turlink, my future coach, would then teach me. So I kind of had a head start on, how to play the game of football. Through having Deke Pollard be a part of that journey, teaching me those things. And then Jerry Azzinaro came in, I think my sophomore year, my junior year, and he just polished it all up. And then that's how my transition started. I started getting older. I started understanding the game more. Experience counts double. It always does. So the more experience that I had, the better I was playing.
Did you go into every year at Syracuse with a sack goal in mind? Was that ever kind of something that you looked at every year?
No, I just wanted to go out there and play as fast as possible and reckless abandon, go out there and change the game. Didn't matter if it was a run, didn't matter if it was a pass. I just wanted to make plays. And that was my mentality. And that, no different how it was in the pros. I know the sack gets glorified and highlighted, but for me, look, I'm a football player, and that doesn't just mean getting quarterback sacks. That means doing the right things that you need to do for your team to win. So if that means going underneath a block so that my linebacker behind me can make the play, then that's what you do. If it's shedding a tight end or a tackle and me making the play myself, then that's what you do. So it wasn't ever in my head, I need to have, at that level, for sure, it wasn't, I need to have 5-6 sacks this game. It was just go out and have, go out and play as fast as you can, and that actually, the truth be told, when I was in the pros, it was the same thing. I never said, I'm going to have 6 sacks this game. I always said, I want to dominate this game. And no matter how many sacks that ended up being, then it is what it is. But I always wanted at least one. At least one. Never want to be shut out.
Yeah, you weren't shut out that often. Again, at Syracuse, a school record, 17 and a half sacks as a senior. You were all Big East, junior, senior years as well. So as you're getting toward the end of your career, did you think, okay, the NFL is obviously out there for me? Did you think you were going to be as highly picked and sought after as you were when it came around?
No, I knew, what everyone else knew, and everyone else was saying, other than Mel Kiper. Mel Kiper had me, projected in the second or third round. I was too small to play defensive end in the NFL. But everyone else, were saying, hey, Dwight Freeney could go anywhere from the 11th pick to the 30th, 31st pick in the first round. And that's what was being told to me after my senior year, after having a great year. So, yeah, I didn't have to wait long because for me, it was like, okay, I'm not going to go 1 through 10, I guess. So 11 would be the first opportunity for me to go based on what they're saying. And sure enough, I got that phone call.
Yeah, 11th overall pick by the Colts back in 2002. What was that phone call like? Who was the first voice you heard on the other end of the line?
It was absolutely amazing. I think it was Bill Polian. It might have been Bill Polian, the first guy I heard on the call. Then Coach Dungy. It was just, it's life changing. When you're talking about a kid coming from Bloomfield, Connecticut. No one really makes it from where I'm from, to that level. And you go from, struggling, right? Your family doesn't make anything. You're not doing it. You're hoping to, I'm on the Pell Grant, just getting money in just so that I could, eat during college, to now I don't have to worry about any of that stuff anymore. All right. And you're going out and you're accomplishing one of your dreams that you've always wanted to do, was be a professional athlete on the highest level, happened to be football. So I was in heaven.
Well, you mentioned that, with the struggles, and a lot of student athletes kind of come from those backgrounds. Does it put stress and strain on you as an athlete to perform and to get to that next level, to help out your family and to help make sure, you have a better life than maybe others did before you?
To be quite honest, when you're in the moment, and for me, that wasn't a thought. I wasn't sitting there thinking, man, I better make it to the NFL so that I can provide for my family. It happened to be that. It happened to manifest into that. It was just me going out, enjoying the game, playing as hard as I possibly can, put as much as I could put into it, and then the results will be the results. And that's what happened. All right. So, maybe there's other players who sit there and think about that stuff and say, and maybe that does put too much pressure on them if they have that thought process, but that's not how it was for me.
Again, outstanding career at Syracuse. So you get drafted that first year, your rookie year. Take us through that. What was your welcome to the NFL moment? When did you think that, okay, I've arrived here on this level and I can play here on this level as well?
Well, I think, my welcome to the NFL moment really was more of a negative moment in a sense. It was verse, we had a guy, and you know him probably, Brad Hopkins. He was an offensive tackle. He was a Pro Bowl guy at Tennessee. And I remember, I pride myself for being one of the fastest guys. I could just run around anybody. It don't matter. I'm going 100 miles per hour around you, no matter how, you decide to block me. And Brad, he was quick, man. He was quick. He wasn't like this 330-pound guy. He was about 300 max, 290 for all I know. And he was dancing with me and laughing at me as I was trying to run around the corner and talking trash to me, like, come on, rookie, you could do better than this, So for me, it was kind of like, wow, this NFL thing, man, this thing is real. They got some real talent out here, and I better step it up and pick it up, or I'm not going to be here long. And I think was my first moment where I really realized, like, man, those college moves don't work here.
There's more tape out on you, more film, more study of what you're doing for sure.
Absolutely.
Well, despite that transition, you still had a great rookie season. You had the 9 forced fumbles, 3 of them of Donovan McNabb. You guys played together for a year, right? Was he a senior? You were a freshman.
Yes,
and then you were the runner-up rookie of the year on the defensive end to Julius Peppers as well. Again, it looks like that transition became easy for you, but how hard was it going through that first year and coming up with some of those numbers?
Well, it wasn't easy. There's nothing in the game of the football and NFL especially that is easy. For me, my rookie year, it was a little, I guess you would say it was a little easier because no one knew exactly who I was and what I was capable of doing. It got a lot harder later. But it was still going out there trying to find ways to make plays. And it really comes down to knowing yourself so that you know what you can do and what you can't do. And then you got to know your opponent to know what you can do and what you can't do. And it's a combination of both. When you're a younger guy in high school and college, you can just get away with just athleticism and speed, and that's it, or power, whatever. But when you get to the pro level, you got to know, not only yourself, you got to know your opponent. And when you know both, then you can go out and make plays.
How important was it for somebody like you, a young player, to have somebody like Tony Dungy as your head coach?
Yeah, I was tremendously blessed to have Tony as a coach. I mean, it really, people talk about Tony and you hear the stories and they're all true. He's really a great guy. He doesn't yell and scream like all these other coaches. He treats you like a man, and, he keeps you, right here, never get too high, never get too low. And it really defined, a lot for me as a player in the NFL. I was lucky, I got to be coached by a Hall of Fame coach who was that type of guy, which worked perfectly with me because I didn't think I responded well to the guy who would bark and scream at you. I responded better with guys like Tony, where he doesn't have to yell and scream for me to go out and do my job. You'll run through a wall for a guy like that, just because you feel so bad or you disappointed your coach who's done everything for you, that type of mentality. So for me, being coached by Tony, it was only a blessing, and it was lucky, and I was lucky to have it.
Third year, you lead the NFL in sacks with 16. By that point, how did your game maybe evolve? Obviously, again, you still had that spin, but how did you continue to mature as a player?
Well, I think I may have mentioned this earlier, is experience counts double, really. And the more you're doing things, you kind of figure things out. And I think by my third year, I was understanding protections, understanding when I could take chances, when I can use a spin move, when I need to go outside and use a speed rush, when do I need to bull rush. So I think around that third year or so, things started to really come together mentally and physically, and it kind of, it's interesting, the older you get, it's like your mental, that starts to go up, but your ability as far as your physicality, your speed, your quickness, all those physical attributes start to go down at some point, the older that you get. And the thing is, you can still play the game because this is still going up. All right. I think around my third year, they were both going up. And it was right around that pinnacle time where everything was just flowing. I could run as fast as I wanted to. I could be as strong as I wanted to. And I could also understand the game. And that's some of the reasons why I played as long as I did. It's just for the fact that, I had a little bit of both.
Yeah, 16 years at some point, like I said, your body's going to kind of start to deceive you there. So your mind has to figure out better ways to do things.
Yep.
Well, in 2006, it was a Super Bowl year for you guys. Going into that year, did you think it was going to be that type of season? Did everything come together with some of the, several other Hall of Famers that were on that team?
Every year when you're playing with Edgerrin James, Peyton Manning, Reggie Wayne, Marvin Harrison, those types of guys, you always know you're in it. You're always thinking, you know what, this is the year. Since 2003, I thought we were going to win 4, 5. We finally won in 6. I thought we were going to win in 7, 8. Now, it just never happens that way. But when you have so much talent around you, you guys are, and you're such a team, and you play together, anything's possible. So you always think this is the year.
Yeah, it's harder than people think sometimes, right? Just to go through a season, stay healthy, and get to that point. But what was it like for you to be a Super Bowl champion back in 2006?
I mean, there's nothing like it. It's one of those things where you get the ultimate prize. It's like that treasure at the end of the rainbow that you never see, but you know it's there, and it's just kind of like the stars aligned. It was one of those moments that you will remember forever. Everybody that's playing the game won't feel that feeling, and you feel bad for them because they're not going to know what that feels like. It takes so many factors to win a Super Bowl. You got to get lucky, born in the right time, whatever you want to call it. There's a lot of that has to go into it. And when you win, you're on top of the world. There is nothing else that matters. It's like, there's nothing else that matters when you win. There is nothing, and then you ride that wave, to be quite honest with you, until maybe, I don't know, preseason, training camp maybe, and then you wake up and there you go. Here's another year. Let's do it again,
Yeah, like you said, you had the pieces to do it a lot of years there. And for you, again, you were a key piece, franchise tagged in 2007, and then you signed that extension as well. Was there a chance that you were not going to be an Indianapolis Colt?
No chance. I didn't see it happening. I knew it was more, strategy, from a financial standpoint, maybe from the organization. But, I knew where I was going to be. And it wasn't, they weren't going to let me go, and I didn't want to go anywhere. So there it is.
Coaching changes. Jim Caldwell comes in. What was he like as the head coach and a leader, especially following somebody so regarded as Tony Dungy?
He was very similar to Tony, very similar. Jim was an awesome guy. Jim recruited me, and I never let him forget this. Jim recruited me in high school to go to Wake Forest and told me that I could play both ways. I could play offense and defense if I ended up going to Wake Forest.
Really?
Obviously, I never went to Wake Forest to see if that was actually true. But when he became a head coach, I said, hey, you got a little more pull now. Let's pull the trigger, both ways. Let's do it. But Jim is an awesome guy. Same fold as Tony. Treat you like a man. Not gonna yell at you, cuss you out, none of that stuff. Very smart, intelligent coach, man. And it was a blast playing for him. I think that, what hurt the Colts, to be quite honest with you, is when they got rid of him. They got rid of him. We were terrible that year. We were 2-14. All right. And that was the year there was a lockout. We had no preseason, no preparation. And that was the year Peyton didn't play. So now we have an offensive system, which is all about Peyton Manning making the right calls, getting the offense in the right position, all the above. And now that major piece is not there. And you're asking, guys that had never done it, don't understand it the same way, to go out there and do it. He ends up getting fired after that year. And it was really tough for me to swallow that. I was like, oh man, he did not deserve it. I get it. The record was bad. But, when you have a guy like Peyton not being there and you focus everything around Peyton, it isn't like we ran the ball 30, 40 times a game. We passed the ball 30, 40 times a game. And the way that he passed the ball wasn't like how Tom and those guys passed the ball. Peyton was being creative and creating the play on the run, and it was a lot more that was going into it.
Yeah, I mean, it's, I guess, is that a moment where you really realize, hey, this is a business, and again, it's a performance-based business?
Yeah, that was the first time. The second time I realized is when they didn't re-sign Peyton. When they didn't re-sign Peyton, I was like, I got to get ready, because if they going to let Peyton go, yeah, no one else got a chance. That's what it is.
Well, eventually that did happen to you. Unfortunately, Chuck Pagano came in. He tried to change you to a linebacker. You had that adjustment period there, and eventually, February 2013, you were told that you wouldn't be re-signed. What is that like as a player, to have the success that you had and then to have it kind of end that way?
It was terrible. I'm not going to sugarcoat it. It was absolutely, absolutely terrible. I actually thought I was getting a phone call from the Colts for them to wish me a happy birthday. I think it was like the day before my birthday, and I was like, oh, they're calling me early to say, hey, happy birthday, be safe. So when I got the call and they're saying, Dwight, thank you for everything you've done, we're not going to re-sign you next year. I was shocked. I thought I did enough for the organization for them to at least let me figure out if it was a money issue. Hey, maybe I reduced my salary, figure out a way to retire at Indianapolis Colt. But they saw things another way. They have, Chuck Pagano, who's a great guy. He had his system that I played in 1 year. I don't know why they really wanted, we had me and Robert Mathis, who played defensive end. We were all pro guys at that position. And they changed the whole entire defense to make us linebackers. And we were the focal points of our defense. And our defense was designed to be a quick 4-3, not a hybrid 4-3-3-4, type of situation. So you're taking guys out of their natural positions, and it may look good on paper, but it wasn't the same. So that's what happened to me. And I ended up having to decide to say, okay, Dwight, are you going to retire or are you going to go somewhere else? And I decided to go somewhere else.
Yeah, 11 years with the Colts. You retired as the all-time sacks leader there, 107.5 sacks. Robert Mathis eventually passed you up. But so retirement did cross your mind? I mean, because obviously you played 5 more years after that, but retirement was on your mind at that point?
Well, not on my mind as far as I'm going to be done. I didn't want to be done on somebody else's terms.
Yeah.
I wanted to be done on my terms. And that's the reason why I kept playing.
Well, again, you continue to play. You had some good years, went to the Chargers, Cardinals, Falcons, back to the Super Bowl as well with the Falcons.
Yeah.
So you got to the Super Bowl 3 times. Obviously, you win it once, you lose it twice. What do you remember more, the wins or
Oh,
do you remember
Lord.
those setbacks?
Oh my God! For me, it's unfortunate that I remember the bad stuff more. I to this day I still wake up, thinking about that Atlanta Falcon game, and just shaking my head like that was in the bag. And when we play, especially against the Patriots, it just even hurt even more. Maybe it was another team, it wouldn't have felt so bad. But it was New England who gave us and gave me so many issues throughout my career, and then you got the Patriots doing it to me again in the Super Bowl. It crushed me. To this day, I'm still not over it. I'm still not over it. We should have won that game. It was maybe if we ran the ball more, and we did made some better decisions offensively, made some better decisions defensively, just kicked the field goal, we would have been good.
Yeah, I think that the Red Sox have the Yankees as the evil empire. Everybody in the NFL has Tom Brady and the Patriots as that evil empire, right? That, like you said, if it were anybody else, maybe it's easier to get over, but not with the Patriots.
Not for me. We had too many battles, the Colts and the Indianapolis Colts and the Patriots was too many years, for me to just get over that. It's going to be a nasty taste in my mouth for a long time.
Well, 2017, Seattle, Detroit, and then 2018, you decide to hang them up,
Yep.
And you sign a one-day contract with the Colts. What did you feel like you mended some fences by doing that, to sign that contract to end your career as an Indianapolis Colt once again?
Well, I always knew I was a Colt at heart. I mean, I played majority of my career there. Unfortunately, it didn't end there. I mean, my playing career didn't really end there. But we all knew, when it came to mentioning me, they knew, oh, that's the guy that was on the Colts. So for me, it was always going to happen at some point that, hey, you know what? It would be nice for me to re-sign there for a day and then just retire.
16 years when it's all said and done. I mean, and you're button heads almost every play. When you look back at it, are you amazed that you had such a lengthy career as a defensive end in the NFL?
No, I was never amazed. I never put limitations on what I thought I could be. I wanted to be the best player that ever played the game. That's my mentality. Maybe fell short, whatever. But it didn't matter. That was what drove me. So no surprises for me as far as how long I played, how well I played. I wasn't surprised because I trained my brain and my mind that I deserved to be there or deserved to be one of the best.
Well, again, you have been one of the best. And in 2019, you joined the Ring of Honor there for the Colts. What did an honor like that mean for you?
Oh, I mean, you take nothing for granted. And those are the type of things that you don't even think about, and I didn't even think about the Ring of Honor. And then I got the call. And I'm like, really? I'm going to Ring of Honor? That's a huge accomplishment. But it's not something that you really think about. You don't sit there and play and say, hey, my name's going to be up on the stadium. Well, at least I didn't. I just went out there and played. And I was like shocked when they said, Dwight, you're going to be on the Ring of Honor. I'm like, wow. And I was surprised because I really was surprised. But if you really think about it, it was silly to be surprised because you would figure that you're going to be one of the guys that would be up there. But it was a tremendous honor. And any of those accolades, right? That's not just individual accolades. That's a team accolade. All of those things had to do with, the team, what we went through as a team, the coaching, making the, catering things for me to do the things that I do, putting me in a position to make plays. So, all these accolades that I've gotten in my career has a lot to be said about the team that I was on.
Yeah, it always happens with a phone call, right? You've had some good phone calls, you've had some bad phone calls as well.
Oh, yeah.
But it seems like more good than bad.
Yes.
125 and a half sacks in your career. Who did you enjoy sacking the most?
Ooh, well, there's two names that come to mind. You got Tom Brady, who I just despised and could not stand just because he played for the Patriots. And when I met him personally, I wanted to hate him so much, but he's such a great guy. I couldn't bring the hate to a whole nother level. After I met him, like, he was exactly the a-hole I always thought he was. Now I'm really going to get him. That it became like, oh God, he's such a good guy. Oh, boy, I guess I got to hit him lightly, I guess. It was one of those things. But Tom is one guy. And David Carr was always a guy I loved to hit. And it wasn't David's fault. Me and David came out the first year of the same year. David never had a real strong offensive system. And I used to just tee it off. I mean, he'd tee it up and knock it out the park while I played against David.
Who was the toughest to sack? Who kind of gave you fits?
I think Steve McNair. I would say Steve McNair was one of those guys where he was just I don't even know, like a superhero back there. He was a guy who could throw all the way downfield and destroy you guys. He could run and get, 10, 15 yards if he needed to. And then when you came out to hit him, he was just so country strong. You would hit him and you feel like you're hitting a brick wall. So it was never an easy challenge to get Steve McNair, man. He was one of those guys where I think he was underrated his entire career. I think if he played for another organization that had a system that was really catering towards him, he would have had the numbers that you see all these quarterbacks have.
Yeah, and he's on that list of nominees for the Hall of Fame coming up this year as well. Hey, how about on the flip side, offensive lineman? Who challenged you? Who talked the most trash to you when before that ball was snapped?
I'll be honest with you, there was only one guy, and I barely remember his name. He was a rookie. He played for Cincinnati, and I was sleepwalking through the first quarter, and all of a sudden, this young guy started talking trash to me. The only guy that I ever remember ever in my entire career talk trash to me. And it woke me all the way up. I ended up having like 2.5 sacks since then. I used to bull rush him, slam him to the ground, all types of stuff, completely woke me up. But to be quite honest with you, no, I hadn't had a lot of experiences with offensive line talking trash.
I know now you play a lot of golf. How did you make that transition? Obviously you retired, but how'd you go from football to golf, and had you played it much, until your retirement?
You know what? Being in Indianapolis, for me, I wasn't, a Midwest guy. I didn't know anything about the Midwest. And for me, really, to stay close to the Midwest during the off season was golf. Because there really wasn't much for me to do if it wasn't for that. All right. I'll be leaving the city every 5 seconds. So I picked up the game of golf, really picked it up then, and loved it. I loved it. It's one of those games where it's nobody's fault but yours. When you don't hit that ball and it's sitting right there, you have no one else to blame. And that taps into that competitive edge that I have, that competitive fire that I have that always burns, and it never is going to go away. So kind of to quench that thirst is the game of golf.
I saw you said golf kind of brings people together, and it brought you and your all-time favorite, Lawrence Taylor, together, right? Is that when you met him the first time?
Absolutely. Shaking it in my boots. I just kind of picked up the game of golf, it may have been 2003, 2004, and I just picked up the game. I got invited to the Michael Jordan Invitational golf event in the Bahamas. And, I went out there, didn't know anything. I didn't know who I was playing with, looked on the tee sheet, found out I was playing with my childhood idol, Lawrence Taylor, and I had no chance from that moment to hit that ball anywhere that I wanted to hit it. Now, normally I couldn't hit it anywhere that I wanted to anyway, but now I really had no chance to hit it anywhere that I wanted to. And we had a stand full of fans, and we had TV cameras. It was a disaster, other than the fact that I was playing with Lawrence Taylor, my childhood idol. And to this day, he still calls me Hack, which is okay.
I know you said too that the saddest day for you was when he retired. You remember that moment when you heard the news that your favorite player was not going to be playing football anymore?
Cried like a baby. Like someone did something to me personally when he retired. I didn't even realize people retired. It's one of those things you don't even think about it until it happens. You're like, what do you mean you're retiring? I couldn't believe it. Like, I couldn't turn on the television and watch Lawrence Taylor play football anymore. That's how much it meant to me that he was out there playing.
You admired him. I'm sure he maybe admired your game as well. Do you guys ever talk about that? Has he given you compliments of your game and what he liked about what you did on the field?
We don't really talk. We just normally when I see him, we talk golf, we laugh, we have some jokes about that, and we keep moving, man. I think he's kind of like me in a way where, we don't really talk about that type of stuff. We've been talking about that type of stuff our entire careers. So for me, it was just more or less just hanging out, and he was hanging out, and we're going to hit this golf ball and hang out.
And I saw too, you're also good friends with Michael Jordan. You golf with him a lot. I mean, yeah. You've got to pinch yourself at some point and be like, I'm just this kid from Connecticut, and look who I'm hanging out with. What is it like when you're playing golf with Michael Jordan?
No, it's absolutely amazing. I was another childhood, hero of mine, which I would never admit to him, but I think I cried when he retired. It was just, I think just having that type of relationship, he's like a big brother to me. I live about 10, 15 minutes away. I would have not, I guess you got to pinch yourself once you think about, this is a guy that you idolize, and he's that guy, that everyone loves to emulate and wants to be the GOAT, right? And he's just one of my boys. He's just a guy that, we go out, play some golf, and talk a little trash, and we go home.
Well, you cried over the retirements. Did you cry when was it your daughter when she was born? You're a dad now. What's that been like for you?
Oh, I've been crying. I've been crying trying to figure out how to change a diaper. She's running around the house, and every corner that I see her running, I think it's just, this is going to be it. Every corner I see her running down the hall, I'm like, oh, this is it, man. She's going to trip, and she's going to stumble, and she's going to hit that corner that I don't have protected. So every day I cry. But no, it's been amazing. She is, Olivia is just has changed my whole perspective on life. Just to know that somewhere in there is a little bit of me and a little bit of my wife, and that's what happened. And she's just a ball of energy. And I just want to make sure I lead her down the right path and doing the right things.
Well, she didn't have a chance to see your career, but may have a chance to see you get enshrined potentially this summer coming up. What would it mean to you to have her there and just to be part of, that group, the Pro Football Hall of Fame?
Like I said, it's an honor to even be mentioned in that type of breadth of those guys who are enshrined. There's things that you don't really think about. And, for my daughter to sit there and watch me, get to the top of the mountain, hopefully, God willing, it will be something that I'm definitely going to tear up about. It's just one of those things where, it's an amazing accomplishment. You didn't do it by yourself. Everybody's going to feel that was part of your journey. Is all going to feel that same type of energy and that same type of feeling that they made it. And I want it to be that way if that ever happens, because, it takes a tribe. It's not just you out there. It takes other people to help you get to where you need to get.
Well, and again, you have a chance to do it your first year eligible as well. Obviously, you want to be in the Hall of Fame no matter what, probably, but to do it in your first year, does that add another layer to it for you?
To be honest with you, if it wasn't for people talking about it all the time, you're a first ballot, I'm like, all right, great, thank you. I don't know if I am or not, and it's just some people's opinions on what that is. Now, I don't know, there's great Hall of Famers that aren't first ballot, awesome players. If I end up being first ballot, great. Awesome. Thank you. But if I'm not, and I ended up, my second, third year, fourth year, whatever, then it's also going to be that same feeling of just being great and grateful that I'm actually in this building and enshrined.
It's got to be hard not to think about it and maybe think about that speech in that moment. Have you thought at all about that, and maybe who will present you when you're up there?
You know what? I hadn't had much thought other than the fact that I wanted my D-line coach, John Turling. He passed away last year. So, if that moment ever comes, I got to think about who's going to be that guy. But to be quite honest with you, I'm never a guy that likes to count their chickens before they're hatched. I'm just, stay focused on whatever's going to happen in front of you. And if it happens, you deal with it then.
Yeah, we don't want to jinx it. Again, as a Syracuse alum, we want you to be in there as well. And look at it from that perspective. Look at the history of Syracuse football. To be among some of those elite, what does that do for you? What does that tell you about, again, what you did for Syracuse and what you've done after your playing days with the Orange?
Well, those before me paved the way for me. All right. And even no matter where I was, whether it be Syracuse, Indianapolis, those guys taught me the ropes. And, I just hope that I did right by them. I went out there and performed and played the game the right way, respected the game the right way, and left it all out there, just like how they did. And if I'm ever, enshrined, that also is because of them.
One last thing. Okay, so you're going to be two-way player at Wake Forest, lead blocking fullback. What was your future going to be? Do you think?
I was
a running back.
I was a tight end and a defensive end. I played two ways in Bloomfield High School, all right, where I grew up. All right, I played a tight end and I played defensive end, and I love both positions. So if I ever got an opportunity to play tight end, I swear at least I'm gonna score one. All right, now you might only get one from me, but I'm gonna score one. I was pretty quick. Now the question is, was I gonna catch the ball? Right? But, I don't really practice catching the ball anymore. If I'm catching the ball, there's something wrong. They say, "Oh, Dwight, you don't have any interceptions." Well, if I have interceptions, then that means I'm probably going the wrong way.
Yeah, a lot of guys are on defense for one reason, right? They can't catch the ball on the offensive end. But certainly Syracuse fans are happy you went there, and Colts fans are happy you were drafted there. And again, I'm sure you've got some big things coming up in Canton, Ohio. And I know a lot of folks are rooting for you to get there this year, first time on the ballot, and it'd be certainly amazing. So, Dwight, I appreciate your time. Great stories, and wish you nothing but the best, and hope that we're seeing you give that speech here next summer.
No, absolutely. I appreciate you having me. You take care.
Hey, great stuff there from Dwight Freeney, future Pro Football Hall of Famer. Maybe as soon as next summer, he'll be enshrined in Canton, Ohio. Our thanks to Lindsay Waterhouse for helping arrange that interview for us. And again, our thanks to you for watching. Be sure to subscribe. More great guests coming your way as we continue to count down toward our 50th episode later on in the fall. Again, we thank you for joining us in the front row with Mike Vaccaro. Have a great day, everybody.